All right, first things first, the poll has been posted for the upcoming first annual Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards. You can find the link to the poll in the description of this video below. Unfortunately, I could not run this poll here on YouTube because they wouldn't let me hide the results. And if I can't hide the results, it's kind of pointless. However, the site I found to host the poll, it is very, very simple to use. Just click the link in the description below of this video, takes you directly to the poll, you cast your vote anonymously, then that's it. It literally takes you 5 seconds. No personal info is required. No signing up for an account is required. Click the link, cast your vote. That's all you got to do. I also want to take a second to thank all of you guys who sent in your nominations. And also a special thanks to my girlfriend for going through the dozens and dozens of emails that we received and organizing all the nominations for me. I narrowed down the choices to I think it was to 5 nominees who received the most requests. The poll's going to be open until the end of the day on Friday, so click the link in the description below, cast your vote for the upcoming Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Some of you guys might not know this, but throughout the fall, the mainstream media, they have found a new obsession. They have found a new cause. They have found a new sport, and they are begging you to give it a chance. Well, KC, is it women's college basketball? No, the woke boners don't typically emerge for women's college basketball until March and April. Sure, the media is still pretending that women's college basketball is surging in popularity, but obviously no one is listening. And no one is watching because, for the most part, ratings for women's basketball are still in the pooper. What, KC, is it the WNBA? No, don't get me wrong though. The media, they still enjoy the smell of a fresh dump. The media will never betray the WNBA dump and the bearded beauties that make minimum wage processing the community garbage. But the shitfucks in the media, they don't spake the waker to an exciting facial hair counting contest until the summer. And that timing is strategic, with the summer being the off season for sports. Well, what about Major League Baseball? What about it? Baseball couldn't draw an audience if their only competition was a CNN special on how to properly squeeze Don's lemons. Over the last few months, though, I have seen countless articles in the mainstream media talking about this surging popularity of women's volleyball at the collegiate level, which I would imagine that is the highest level for volleyball, the collegiate level. Do they have professional volleyball leagues? If they do, I can't imagine that the players are making very much money. Now, I'm sure they're compensated better than the dump divers in the WNBA, but it's a double-edged sword. Their pay is slightly higher, but because of that, it disqualifies them from the welfare benefits that dump employees receive. Free health care, free abortions when your husband gets pregnant, free gender-affirming care, and best of all, a complimentary supply of Just for Men. Throughout the fall, I have seen numerous articles highlighting the growth of college volleyball. This sport is amazing! This is high-level athleticism! Believe it or not, I am not going to criticize the media's coverage of college volleyball. Unlike their coverage of women's college basketball, unlike their coverage of the WNBA, I don't feel like the media is going overboard. I don't feel like the media is shoving volleyball down our throats. Plus, college volleyball is actually showing signs of growth. This isn't like the WNBA drawing 400,000 for a playoff game and the media claims the WNBA is exploding in popularity. America has fallen in love with the handsome Bob Griner. I've actually been impressed with the growth of college volleyball this season. Back in August, I think it was August, maybe it was early September. Either way, over the end of the summer, Nebraska drew over 90,000 people to one of their volleyball games. 90,000! There are programs in women's college basketball when you could combine the crowds for their home games 2 months into the regular season, and you wouldn't come close to reaching 90,000 people. Young women at Nebraska on the volleyball team, they accomplished that in one game. If I had to guess, that's probably the largest crowd ever here in the United States for a women's sporting event. If so, good for them. Good for the young women of Nebraska. Over the weekend, college volleyball, they had their postseason tournament. The Elite Eight was held on Saturday. All 4 games were played on Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. The games were scheduled to be broadcast on ESPNU, which caused all sorts of fake outrage with the shitfucks on social media. These games should be airing on ESPN. This is outrageous! The outrage continued because the brilliant minds at ESPN, they only provided 2 hours of airtime for each game, with all games following each other back to back. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it looks like yours truly, me, looks like I have something in common with the people running ESPN. It looks like none of us watch volleyball. Apparently, 2 hours, that's not enough time to finish a volleyball game or a volleyball match, whatever the hell they call it. Disaster struck early, though, because ESPNU, they were broadcasting a college basketball game before the Elite Eight in volleyball. As it happens all the time, the basketball game ran over its time slot, forcing the Elite Eight in volleyball to start on ESPN+. Now, just think about that for a second. You gotta remember, ESPN claims to be the home of women's sports. We love women. We named Leah Thomas our Woman of the Year. ESPN, they claim to be supporters. They claim to promote growth in women's sports. But like I say all the time, I analyze based on your actions, not your words. This is the most important time of year for college volleyball. It's their tournament. It's the Elite Eight. If ESPN was broadcasting a regular season game in college baseball, the game goes into extra innings with the NBA playoffs following the broadcast, guess what ESPN's going to do? They are going to move that meaningless baseball game and put the NBA on ESPN. Not with college volleyball. No. ESPNU, they finished the men's college basketball game and they bumped volleyball again to ESPN+. What game was so important? What game did ESPNU just have to finish before they could get to college volleyball? Grand Canyon versus Liberty. What a classic. Quick, how many of you guys can tell me where Grand Canyon University is located? Better yet, how many of you knew that Grand Canyon was a university instead of a gigantic hole in the ground? Again, follow the actions here of ESPN, not their words. The first game in the Elite Eight, it ran over their allotted time of 2 hours. So the people tuning in to see the next game, Arkansas and Nebraska, they were directed to ESPN News. I didn't know ESPN News was still in existence. If you're like the 90% of the country and you don't have access to ESPN News, they directed you to ESPN Plus. For the small price of, I think it's $14.99, you could pay to watch Arkansas, Nebraska until they move the game back to ESPNU. I'm sure you're getting the point, though. The broadcast of the Elite Eight in college basketball or college volleyball on ESPNU, it was an unmitigated disaster, which caused the wanker spankers on social media to come out in full force against ESPN. It was another classic case of the woke turning on the woke. Over the weekend, ESPN was crucified for how they treated college volleyball. They were accused of not treating these young women fairly. They were accused of not giving them a chance. ESPN can claim all they want to be the home of women's sports. They can pretend like they care. They can produce these glowing pieces on women's basketball. They can produce these expensive commercials promoting the WNBA, which is really nothing but a polished turd. They can donate millions to Bob Griner for the rights to broadcast her story that no one gives a shit about. ESPN can do and say all the right things. But at the end of the day, there's only two things that are important to ESPN: ratings and money, and they both go hand in hand. From a business perspective, ESPN made the right decision this weekend to put college volleyball on ESPNU. There is no denying the fact that volleyball has grown this season. I'm not being mean when I say this, though, but that growth, they went from nothing to almost nothing. Ratings for college volleyball was up 58% this season on ESPN. Well, Casey, that is amazing. Yeah, you know what they averaged? 116,000 viewers. Now, let's just look at this logically. If you're in charge of programming at ESPN, are you going to put college volleyball on ESPN, maybe even ESPN2 or ESPNU? Hell, they're lucky enough to get on ESPNU. They could have been on ESPN News. If they put the Elite Eight on ESPN, that means you got to move something else to make room for it. The 4 college volleyball games on ESPNU this past weekend, they averaged 326,000 viewers. Most watched game had 379,000, least watched game 192,000. I know those numbers sound low, but they're actually impressive considering they were broadcast on ESPNU and there was nothing but turmoil with the schedule. Would the ratings have been higher if the Elite 8 was on ESPN? Of course they would. Maybe they would have doubled. Matter of fact, let's assume the ratings would have doubled if they were broadcast on ESPN. College volleyball would have drawn 650,000, maybe 655,000. Let's look at what ESPN broadcast on Saturday. You tell me if you would have moved this programming to make room for college volleyball. The Heisman Trophy presentation, 2.3 million viewers. Villanova, South Dakota State in college football, 1.9 million. A 30 for 30 documentary, 1.2 million. Missouri, Kansas in college basketball, 1.2 million. Wisconsin, Arizona in college basketball, 681,000. ESPN2 had college basketball, and they also had a simulcast of the NBA in-season tournament that was also being broadcast on ABC. Everything on ESPN2, over 450,000 viewers. So, you tell me, what are you taking off ESPN2 to make room for college volleyball? Something that is not a proven ratings draw. Something that has historically failed to draw big numbers in the past. This is nothing against the young ladies in college volleyball. This is just common sense. You put programming on your network that is going to draw the biggest audience. It's not misogyny. It has absolutely nothing to do with being fair. It's about making money. All these whiners on social media accusing ESPN of not giving volleyball a chance, they're going to get that chance this weekend. For the first time ever, the Final Four in volleyball, it's going to air on ESPN. Championship game, it's going to be broadcast on ABC. We'll see how they perform. And look, I hope they do well. I really do. I wish them nothing but the best. But all those people on social media, all the people in the mainstream media bitching about ESPN putting these games on ESPNU, if they were running a network and they were in the same position, they would have done the exact same thing. All right, don't forget to cast your votes for the first annual Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards. Link is in the description below. Also, give me your thoughts on this. Did ESPN make the right decision to put the Elite 8 in volleyball on ESPNU? I think it's a no-brainer. You don't remove the NBA, you don't remove the Heisman ceremony to make room for a niche sport like volleyball. But let me know what you think about it. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate you guys and your continued support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.